greatest, if not the greatest ever. Let's marinate on it for a moment. That was Larry Bird saying that about LeBron James.
That struck a nerve right there, Molly.
Kendrick Perkins, Black America.
Stephen A., uncross your arms, Stephen A., uncross your arms. Now all of a sudden you got an antithetical, a laissez-faire attitude. Now, when Larry Bird in 1986?
Larry Bird has officially entered the chat, and he did not come quietly. The Boston Celtics icon reportedly unloaded on LeBron James and Kevin Durant after learning the two superstars were mocking Shaquille O'Neal behind the scenes. And this wasn't playful banter or harmless locker room jokes. According to Bird, it crossed a line. A big one. This wasn't social media drama or a quick post-game jab. This was Larry Legend, one of the most respected minds the NBA has ever known, publicly putting two modern icons on blast for what he saw as blatant disrespect toward a Hall of Famer. And when Bird speaks, the basketball world listens. But here's the part that really turns heads. What LeBron and KD allegedly said about Shaq wasn't just trash talk, it was deliberate, personal, and calculated. When word reached Bird, he didn't hesitate. He stepped in, defended Shaq, and made his feelings crystal clear in a way only a true legend could. So what did LeBron and Durant say that pushed Bird over the edge? Why did Larry feel compelled to protect Shaq's legacy? And how are two of today's biggest stars reacting to being checked by one of the game's all-time greats? Buckle up, because this story runs much deeper than rivalry or ego. And by the end of it, you might see LeBron and KD very differently.
Why does the Joel Embiid situation bother you so much?
Because he has so much potential, and I love all the big men. As you can see from shooting all the threes, the big man is, starting to slide away and enter into their atmosphere. Like you got Victor Wembanyama at 7'5" shooting threes. I'm not saying don't shoot the three, but that shouldn't be the majority of your game. Majority of your game should be to dominate, get your teammates open, and then when defenses start.
Let's rewind to early January 2025. LeBron James and Kevin Durant are attending a private, invite-only event. The full details are still hazy and nothing has officially hit the mainstream press. But according to multiple sources, what happened behind closed doors wasn't exactly friendly chatter. At some point during the night, the two superstars were allegedly caught on audio in what can only be described as a full-blown roast session. And the target? Shaquille O'Neal. Now, trash talk isn't exactly rare among NBA players. Stars joke, vent, and throw shots all the time. But this wasn't typical locker room banter. People who were present claim LeBron and KD went far beyond playful ribbing, tearing into Shaq's legacy from multiple angles. According to one source, LeBron reportedly mocked Shaq's free throw struggles and questioned his dominance, suggesting that Shaq benefited heavily from having elite guards, especially Kobe Bryant, and implying those 3 championships in Los Angeles don't look the same without Kobe carrying the load. Durant allegedly piled on, laughing and calling Shaq's media presence embarrassing, claiming his podcast takes feel forced and that he's turned himself into a caricature just to stay relevant in the modern NBA conversation. And if that wasn't enough, things supposedly escalated. The discussion allegedly shifted to Shaq's actual on-court game. Both LeBron and Durant questioned whether Shaq would even command a max contract in today's NBA. They reportedly argued that the modern pace and space era would expose his conditioning, limit his effectiveness, and make his skill set look outdated compared to big men like Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. In their view, Shaq's dominance was a product of a different time, one that doesn't translate cleanly to today's game. The key thing to remember? None of this was meant to leave the room. This was supposedly a private moment. Two of the most powerful players of their generation talking freely, trading hot takes, maybe even trying to outdo each other. But in 2025, private is a fragile concept. Someone recorded the conversation. Someone shared it. And once the audio began circulating among NBA insiders, it was only a matter of time before it reached someone who wasn't going to let it slide. And that's when the wrong, or perhaps the right, person found out.
Always told me, well, wait till you get to the pros, this and that, but it didn't take long. It didn't take long for me to feel that I could play in this league.
Did you see that story about, I guess it started with Shaq and Scottie Pippen on the all-time Bulls team against the all-time Laker team, and Shaq and Scottie were going back at each other, and then people started looking at, if I had the all-time Celtic team against the all-time Laker team, how would that work out? Did you follow that story at all?
No, but, I see things all the time. I mean, who really cares?
Enter Larry Bird. Now, Larry Bird isn't the type to jump into modern NBA noise. He's not scrolling Twitter. He's not firing off podcast takes. He's not chasing relevance or headlines. When Bird speaks, it's usually because something truly bothered him. And this time, it did. According to sources close to the situation, one rumored to be a former teammate who still has deep connections around the league, Bird was quietly informed about what LeBron James and Kevin Durant had allegedly been saying about Shaquille O'Neal. His reaction was instant. "Are you serious?" Bird reportedly said. "They said that about Shaq." To understand why this struck such a nerve, you have to understand Larry Bird. His entire legacy is built on respect. Respect for the game, for competition, and most importantly, for the legends who shaped the NBA before the spotlight ever reached this generation. Bird went to war with Magic Johnson for over a decade, yet never once disrespected him off the court. He battled icons like Julius Erving, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Moses Malone, and always spoke about them with admiration, even after brutal playoff battles. So when Bird heard that two of the biggest stars of the modern era were casually tearing down Shaquille O'Neal, a four-time NBA champion, a three-time Finals MVP, and one of the most physically dominant forces the league has ever seen, it wasn't just annoying. It was offensive. And there was another layer to it. Bird and Shaq aren't strangers. Over the years, they've crossed paths at charity events, Legends Weekends, Hall of Fame ceremonies, and NBA functions. Bird has publicly praised Shaq's impact on the game more than once. In a 2019 interview, Bird famously called Shaq unstoppable in his prime and even said that if he were building a team around a center from any era, Shaq would absolutely be in the conversation. So for Bird, this wasn't just about defending Shaquille O'Neal the person. It was about defending basketball history itself. It was about drawing a line and reminding younger superstars that greatness isn't something you casually mock once the microphones are off. Legends are legends for a reason. And when Larry Bird decides something needs to be said, he doesn't whisper. Within days, Bird reportedly reached out to a trusted media contact and made it clear he wanted to go on the record. No subtweets, no vague quotes, no anonymous leaks. He wanted his words attached to his name. He wanted the world to know exactly how he felt about what LeBron James and Kevin Durant had allegedly said, and what he said next didn't just criticize them, it absolutely obliterated them.
Most NBA fans know that LeBron is not a top 5 player. I don't think he is, right? I think that there are better players than him in the NBA. I think there are 5 players or 6 players that are much better than him. Nikola Jokic is much better than LeBron. Giannis is much better than LeBron. Joel Embiid is much better than LeBron. Luka Doncic is much better than LeBron. And then you can start going through the list. I would put Jason Tatum ahead of him. I'll put Joel Embiid.
Larry Bird's statement hit the basketball world like a freight train. There was no tweet, no press conference, no drawn-out media tour. Instead, Bird gave an exclusive statement to a well-connected NBA insider, and within hours it was everywhere. The message was unmistakable. Larry Legend had something to say, and he wasn't pulling a single punch. According to multiple reports, Bird began by laying out his credibility, quietly, but firmly. He said he'd been around the game for more than 40 years. He'd played against the best, coached the best, and watched the NBA evolve across generations. But through all that change, Bird stressed one thing should never disappear: respect. And then he went straight at LeBron James and Kevin Durant. If LeBron and KD truly believe they can sit around mocking Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most dominant forces the league has ever seen, then in Bird's words, they've completely lost the plot. Bird wasn't finished. Shaq didn't need a three-point shot. He didn't need step-back jumpers or fancy handles. He didn't need to play like a guard in a big man's body. What? Because he was 7'1", over 320 pounds, and absolutely unstoppable within 10 feet of the basket. Bird made it clear, that kind of dominance doesn't expire with eras. Put Shaq in any generation, Bird said, and he's destroying people. Put Shaq on LeBron's team or Kevin Durant's team right now, and those championships come easier than they ever did. Then came the knockout blow. Bird reportedly said that the very fact LeBron and KD felt the need to tear Shaq down said far more about them than it ever could about Shaquille O'Neal. In Bird's view, this wasn't confidence, it was insecurity. Worrying about legacies. Worrying about all-time rankings. Worrying about where history will place their names. Instead of letting their careers speak for themselves, Bird said, they were sitting in private rooms tearing down legends who can't defend themselves in that moment. That's weak. That's cowardly, Bird allegedly said. And it's everything that's wrong with the modern NBA. Let that sink in. Larry Bird, one of the most respected figures in basketball history, just labeled LeBron James and Kevin Durant weak and cowardly. And somehow he still wasn't done. Bird went on to say that if he had ever heard Magic Johnson or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar disrespecting Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell the way Shaq was disrespected, he would have called them out immediately. No hesitation. No private silence. According to Bird, that's the difference between generations. His era understood that greatness is built on those who came before. They knew they were standing on the shoulders of giants, and they never forgot it. We didn't get to where we were by tearing down the greats who came before us, Bird said. We got there by respecting them, learning from them, and then trying to be better than them. And in Bird's view, LeBron James and Kevin Durant clearly missed that lesson. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Social media erupted almost instantly. Timelines were flooded. Fans split into hard camps. One side rushed to defend LeBron and KD, arguing that players are entitled to their opinions and that a private conversation should never have been leaked in the first place. To them, this was less about disrespect and more about invasion of privacy. The other side stood firmly with Bird. Their argument was simple. Private or not, you don't tear down legends like Shaquille O'Neal, especially when your own legacy is still being written. To them, this wasn't about free speech. It was about principle. Then the former players started chiming in. Charles Barkley reportedly texted a reporter with a blunt message, "Larry's right. You don't talk about Shaq like that. Period." Reggie Miller posted a cryptic tweet that read, "Respect the game or get out." Even Dwayne Wade, normally careful and diplomatic, liked a tweet saying, "Larry Bird just reminded everyone why legends are legends. Some things you just don't say." That's when the conversation shifted. Because now the biggest question wasn't about Bird or Shaq anymore. It was simple, how were LeBron and KD going to respond? Let's start with LeBron. Unsurprisingly, King James went completely radio silent. No tweets. No Instagram stories. No statements through his PR team. Nothing. And that silence wasn't accidental. LeBron understands the optics. You don't get into a public war of words with Larry Bird, a man whose trash-talking reputation is legendary and whose standing in the basketball world is untouchable. But silence can be loud. LeBron's lack of response only intensified the speculation. Fans began asking uncomfortable questions. If Bird was wrong, why wasn't LeBron denying it? Why wasn't he clearing the air? Why not push back? According to some insiders, LeBron's camp advised him to stay quiet and let the story burn itself out rather than pour gasoline on it. Others believe the truth is more personal, that LeBron was genuinely embarrassed his private comments were exposed and didn't want to give the controversy more oxygen. Either way, the message was clear. LeBron James wasn't speaking. And in a moment this big, that silence spoke volumes. Kevin Durant, on the other hand, well, if you know KD, you already know how this was going to go. Durant took to Twitter, because of course he did, and fired off a series of tweets that danced around the controversy without ever naming it outright. One read, "People love twisting words and creating narratives. Y'all don't know half of what really gets said in private convos, and that's how it should stay." Another followed soon after, "Respect to all the legends always, but let's not act like we can't have opinions or debates about the game we love." Classic KD, defensive, slightly passive-aggressive, carefully worded, and stopping just short of actually confirming or denying anything. It was the kind of response that tries to satisfy everyone while really satisfying no one. And people noticed. Several verified accounts pushed back almost immediately. One former player replied bluntly, "Having opinions is one thing. Mocking a Hall of Famer who dominated for 19 years is another. Learn the difference." Durant didn't respond. No clapback. No burner. Just silence. Meanwhile, the basketball world shifted its attention to the one voice everyone expected to hear next, Shaquille O'Neal. After all, Shaq has never exactly avoided conflict. He's gone after Dwight Howard. He's taken shots at JaVale McGee. He's had long-running beefs with players, analysts, and even teammates. If anyone was going to jump into this fire, it would be him. But so far, nothing. No tweets. No Instagram videos. No comments on TNT. Some believe Shaq is taking the high road, choosing dignity over drama. Others think he's simply waiting, letting the tension build before delivering a response only Shaq can. Knowing him, neither option is on the table. What is undeniable is this: Larry Bird put LeBron James and Kevin Durant in an impossible position. They can't fully defend themselves without sounding petty. They can't attack Bird without looking even worse. And they can't ignore it, because the story has already exploded. Bird didn't yell. He didn't rant. He didn't beg for attention. He just spoke, and in doing so, he checkmated two of the biggest stars of this era. So why does any of this matter? Why should anyone care about a leaked conversation or an old school legend calling out modern superstars? Because this was never really about LeBron, KD, or even Shaq. It's about something bigger, the slow erosion of respect in basketball culture. Think about it. In Larry Bird's era, players didn't hop on podcasts ranking themselves above legends who were still alive. They didn't subtweet retired greats. They didn't mock Hall of Famers in private conversations that were bound to leak. Was there trash talk? Absolutely. Bird himself was one of the greatest trash talkers the game has ever seen, but there was a line, and that line was respect. You could talk trash to someone's face on the court. You could battle for 48 minutes, fight for every inch, and leave everything out there. That was always part of the game. But when the buzzer sounded, there was respect. You acknowledged greatness. You understood that what happened between the lines stayed there. You didn't sit behind closed doors tearing down the very people who built the league you're now profiting from. And that's what Larry Bird is really calling out. This was never just about Shaquille O'Neal. Bird wasn't simply defending a former superstar. He was defending a principle. The idea that the game has a lineage. That today's success rests on yesterday's greatness. That legends aren't obstacles to be cleared. They're the foundation. LeBron James and Kevin Durant are undeniably two of the greatest players of their generation. That's not up for debate. Their resumes speak for themselves. But greatness isn't measured only in points, rings, or MVPs. It's measured in how you carry yourself, how you talk about the game, and how you treat the people who came before you. Why mocking Shaquille O'Neal? Whether privately or publicly, LeBron and KD crossed a line. And Larry Bird made sure the world noticed. So now comes the real question. Does this change anything? Do LeBron and KD take the message to heart and adjust how they speak about legends? Do they offer clarification, maybe even an apology? Or do they double down, insisting it was just a private conversation, that their opinions are valid and that everyone else is overreacting? Only time will answer that. But one thing is already clear. Larry Legend just reminded everyone why he's a legend. Not just because of what he did on the court, but because of how he carries himself off it. He stood up for a fellow great when it mattered. He called out disrespect when it became normalized. And in doing so, he reminded the basketball world that while the game may evolve, some values should never change. And he did it in the most Larry Bird way possible, blunt, brutal, and completely unforgettable. Before we wrap this up, let me ask you something. Do you think LeBron and Kevin Durant crossed a line? Or is this whole thing being blown way out of proportion? Should players be allowed to have harsh private opinions about legends, or does being a superstar come with a responsibility to show respect? On and off the record. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to know where you stand. Because at the end of the day, this story isn't really about beef between players from different eras. It's about legacy. It's about respect. And it's about understanding that the game is bigger than any one name on the back of a jersey. Larry Bird didn't have to say anything. He could have stayed quiet, stayed above the noise, and let the controversy fade away. But he didn't, because to him, defending the integrity of the game and the legends who built it isn't optional. It's non-negotiable. LeBron James and Kevin Durant are still writing their stories. Their careers aren't finished. Their legacies are still taking shape. But moments like this matter. How you speak about the greats who came before you says just as much about who you are as how many rings you win. And thanks to Larry Legend, the entire basketball world is watching now. Will LeBron and KD own it? Will they clarify or apologize? Or will they let the storm pass and hope everyone moves on? Whatever happens next, one thing is certain. Larry Bird made sure this conversation isn't going anywhere. If you made it this far, you're clearly here for the real stories behind the headlines. Don't miss the next breakdown. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay locked in. Drop a like if you think Bird was right to call them out, and let me know in the comments whose side you're on. Let's keep the conversation going.